What's up, guys? Jay Daniel here. Today I got our guest JD back for round two. Um, this is going to be a little bit more freestyle, a little more free flowing. A lot of people I've seen are kind of in a place where they're making like 3, 4, 5K a month. They want to kind of make that like 30, 40, 50. So I brought JD on to kind of go over that, go over the lifestyle, what life looks like when you maximize closing, you've transitioned out. So let's kick it off. Good to have you, JD.
Always a pleasure, brother. Always a pleasure.
Love it, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good place to start. Like for you, like I guess what was the journey like going from like, hey, I want to close to now being in a place where it's like, hey, let me get this really cool house in like some other country. Like what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been a journey. Definitely not overnight. As some people know, I just moved to Colombia and got kind of my dream house under lease for 6 months. Is the longest I've stayed in anywhere for a while. We got the pool, the sauna, squash courts, all that good stuff, and so it's been really exciting. It it took a minute, and there was lots of ups and downs. When I started out, I kind of started like everybody else, right? I followed the rules, applied for jobs, cold outreach, start at the bottom, cut your teeth, get in, work your way up. And it just wasn't working for me. I was busting my ass. I was in Korea at the time. So I was doing, starting my day at 9 p.m. at night and ending at 10 in the morning. And I think the first 3 months, following everybody else's rules, I made $3,000, and it was barely enough to scrape by. And I just decided then and there, like, I got to do something different. This is not what I want to do. This is not why I left Canada. This is not going to provide me anything. And so I just kind of flipped the script on everything, and I stopped applying for jobs. And I'm like, why can't I treat this like my own business? Why can't I be a service provider like anybody else, like a Facebook ads service provider or email marketer or copywriter? Like, I provide a service to another business. Like, why can't I treat it as such? And the minute I started realizing that I need to market myself like a business and treat this like a business, I started getting business results. And I think the next month, I made somewhere around 12K. And then after that, it was 30 to 50. I think my best month was around 53K. And that was a big part of it, was realizing that I have to show up as a business, not as a job applicant, not as an employee, not just sitting and waiting for someone else to provide for me, but I have to provide for myself, and I have to make tough decisions. And I didn't really have to become a better salesperson. I knew how to sell, at least the foundations. And so it was really about making the harder choices of, they always say it's hard to give up good for great, but that was the easiest decision I ever made. Was, I can't settle for this anymore. I have to raise the standard for myself. And when I raise the standard for myself, it's like everybody around me seemed to either raise their standard or disappear, which was perfect.
Right.
So it created that space for something great.
And that's so huge because it was almost like not instantaneous, but like the very next month, right? Like things
Yeah.
start changing. So
Yeah.
I know you had like a really big like perspective change where you're not waiting for opportunities. Now it's like you're going after it. What was the difference? I guess what was your day-to-day like when you were doing the 3K a month as opposed to like the 30? If you had to
The
describe it.
crazy thing is, the day to day wasn't even that different. Like, I was working just as hard, if not harder, on the 3K as I was the 30, 40, 50K, which is insane. The only difference was, like, I was taking more inbound calls, and my day was spent selling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really think that people fall into a trap of looking at what's available to them, right? Like, who's hiring and what's available to me and who's going to hire me at this. And someone tells them, hey, you got to be a setter for a year. And they're like, okay, I got to be a setter for a year. But like, why are you letting someone else decide what you want to do? Right? Like, if you want to do it, it might be a harder road, but like, who's afraid of it being hard? And I was never afraid of it being hard. So I'm like, I don't want the results that most people are struggling with. So I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to get a different result. And if it's hard, then it's hard. And what I found is It wasn't that hard. The hardest part was making the decisions and committing to it and not settling. And so I went out, and instead of looking and saying, okay, who's posting jobs? I went to the best companies in my niche. At the time, it was e-commerce. I went to the very top of the food chain. I talked to them. They said no. Okay, so what? I'm no worse off than I was, right? I went to the second best company, third best company, fourth best company, all no's. But the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, they all had openings, not job postings, but they were ready to hire.
Yep.
Right? And so I skipped the line and went with these companies, and they were doing 500K a week. Right. And so they had the lead flow, they had the testimonials, they had the proven results, they had a team of, 20, 30 salespeople. And so I knew that I was going to have the lead flow, because that was what was always missing on the campaigns before that. Right. Like, everybody and their dog promises 10 to 15 leads per week until you get in there and you realize that's not the case. And I didn't want 10 to 15 leads a week. I wanted, 30, 40. I wanted 8 calls booked on my calendar, 10 calls booked on my calendar a day, knowing that no shows, I could close 2, right? And make good money, make over $1,000 a day.
What was the biggest you mentioned a little earlier, you had mentioned that like not job postings, right? But you like what's the biggest difference between like they're looking to hire as opposed to like a job posting for the people watching?
Well, I think the biggest difference is just understanding the market, right? And so when you think like a service provider, right, then you go out and you hunt for clients, right? Like you go market yourself, you go sell yourself, you get deals, right? Where a job applicant gets in line, and the lines are 300 people deep, right? And we found a stat that only 5% of applicants actually get seen by a real person. So when you put your application in, like the chance of your application even being seen is 5%. That's insane. Some of these applications are long. It can take I've filled out applications that took 45 minutes before. And then I took a step back and just realized, okay, well, the turnover rate in this industry is crazy, right? 60% turnover. And there's so many unreliable staff. There's people who don't perform. There's people who struggle internally, and that comes out in their work. So I just thought every company must have someone that they're thinking about replacing, or an opening coming up, or they're generating more leads. So they want someone who can perform. Everybody wants a top performer. They'll make room because it's so rare. And I knew I could perform, not that I had overconfidence or that I was cocky, but I knew that I had a growth mindset, that I can get in, I can work hard, I can learn, I can model the top people, and I can produce results. And I'm reliable and hardworking, all the X factors. So I thought, if I was a business owner and I knocked on the door, right, and I was doing well, I would find a spot for me. And so it was just that perspective shift of I'm not waiting anymore. Everybody's hiring all the time. If they're not, I'm going to give them a reason to. And like I said, the first, second, third, fourth didn't hire me. I'm still no worse off than I was when I started. And so what I did was start at the top and network with the top and work my way down. That way I'm getting the best opportunity available to me based on my experience and my resources, time, and past performance.
Yeah. And once you made that transition, I guess, I think a lot of people hear 10, 20, 30K and it's a number, but what actually outside of just, your numbers and your schedule changing, what actually changed?
Oh man, well, 4.5 months later, I had $120,000 in the bank. I had never had that much money in the bank ever, not even close, not even, I don't know if I've maybe had a tenth of that at one point, right? When I was younger and doing the door-to-door thing and just saving. But this was just it felt like overnight. It was 4.5 months, but $120,000. That year I made $438,000. I took care of my friends, I took care of my family, I paid off my parents' mortgage. I went and did that, that first layer of look what I got, and then to be honest, I went to Europe and I had the absolute time of my life. Probably some things I won't share here, but I flew some friends in to Europe, and we went to Prague and we went to London and Amsterdam and just all over. And I honestly took some time off. I look back and over the last 7-8 years of high ticket sales, I've probably only worked about 4.5 of it. So when I feel like I've maxed out on a campaign, I feel like, there's no challenge there anymore, or I just feel like it's time to really enjoy it. I've never been afraid to walk away from a campaign to enjoy the other aspects of life and challenge myself and grow. So yeah, I did a big trip through Europe. I went through Southeast Asia again, and then came back to Central and South America.
You that's so good, because it's so, I think a lot of people forget, like that's very close, right? It's
Oh,
just a matter of getting after it.
you're
What
one
was your,
opportunity away. One
yep.
opportunity away at all times, no matter if you've had the shittiest, worst, traumatic last 6 months of your life, right? Like, before all this, I went through loss. I lost the three most important people in my life. I was at the absolute rock bottom, right? Never thought I would claw my way back up, but just kept a little bit of hope and just kept moving. And so, like, you never know. The past is not a good indicator of what's to come if you make different choices. If you make the same choices, the past is a great indicator of what's going to come, right? You're going to get exactly that. But if you start changing, right? And like I always say, one of my favorite quotes in UCM is shit travels at the speed of shit, right? And it takes people a while to understand that. But what that means is you're not living, like if you go out to the gym today, you're not going to see the results of that today, right? You're investing for your future self. They're going to see it, right? And so what you're living in today is not like, people make this choice and they're like, I don't know why my life hasn't turned around. Well, it's compound interest, right? And so you're living the sum of all your decisions up until now. And so you don't get to just change it and be like, oh, I've become a different person. Where are my results, right? But it doesn't take a long time, right? Like I just made those few simple changes of, I'm not going to settle. I'm going to design my life exactly what I want. I'm going to build a business, right? And a business mindset that says, this is the service I provide. This is who I provide it to. And this is what I deserve to get paid for it. And, 4.5 months later, my life was changed forever.
That's heavy. That's awesome. And so I guess in terms of the industry, like, changes that you've seen over the years, like, I guess, what have you seen change and where do you see the industry headed, like maybe 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. It's been challenging at times. And, that's kind of why I started UCM. I got tired of complaining about things. I was like, I'm just going to be the change instead of complaining about it.
What is UCM
So,
for the people watching?
yeah, so Undeniable Closer Mastermind. It's a mentorship and mastermind program for people that want to develop personally, career, transition into the industry, develop as a salesperson, transition from setter to closer. Basically, we see a lot of programs that are your generic sales training and, here's the script, here's the sales calls, go nuts. Well, it's fantastic, right? For a lot of people who haven't done it before, they need that. But what we're finding is people don't know how to navigate this industry. They don't know how to go after these 30K opportunities. They don't know specifically what people are looking for in interviews, outreach, networking, and then also the personal development. You are the product, right? And so if you develop as a person, you get paid more, right? Personal development has been the cornerstone of me getting paid more in this industry. So yeah, we focus. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. I push people. It's a true mentorship. It's not just the words mentor. It's a true mentorship in that we figure out each person's specific need and we challenge them for a massive transformation over 90 days.
Link in the description, guys. So I guess you Inc. You talk a lot about like you Inc. Like, what is you Inc. And why is it so important for people to start adapting that philosophy?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to your last question, right? And that what I've seen change over this industry is like 6-7 years ago, it was so fairly new that there wasn't a lot of competition. And someone could just come in and we didn't know the standards and it was kind of a clean slate. Now the relationships have been torn in that every coach and every agency owner has a 6-figure opportunity until you get in and realize you have to build it from scratch, right? And every closer is a 50% close rate, absolute gun until you put them on the phone or schedule them on call and they don't show up, right? And so there's been there's been a gap and kind of broken trust, right? And so, people say like, oh, well, is it flooded now? It is, right? But the good thing about a flood is, think about what happens in a flood. The ceiling doesn't get flooded, right? Where does the water go? It goes to the basement.
Bottom. Mhm.
Right? And that's the exact same thing in this industry. It is absolutely flooded at the bottom, right? So don't go to the bottom, right? And so You Inc. is a way to be able to distinguish yourself away from all the thousands and thousands of people sending in job applications, and say, this is the service that I provide. So each day I wake up, I mean, I'm in a business now, but when I wasn't, right, I would wake up as the CEO, and I just happen to have a closer agency, and it just happens to have one closer, me. And the marketing team has one person, me. And the sales team has one person, me. And the CEO is me, right? And so each day I would set my day up in those 4 quarters. As a CEO, what is my plan? What is my vision? What does the business need, right? Big picture, fundraising, all of these different things, right? Then the marketing team. How do I get my brand out there? Who knows I exist? The biggest problem that I see for people is no one knows you exist. It's impossible to get hired from someone who doesn't know you exist. I've never been able to hire someone I don't know exists. It's like dating. I can't date someone I don't know exists, right? It's not imaginary friends here, right? And so the idea of being able to market yourself and say, I need to be seen. Attention is the new currency, right? Where is my brand being seen? Who knows about me? And then sales, right? And I'm not talking about jumping on a campaign selling. I'm talking about being able to sell my service. So having conversations, right? Connecting and having conversations. But people try and do that without the marketing. And marketing is an important aspect of business. So I literally just started modeling the most successful businesses. I thought, okay, if a successful business does it, then I'm going to do it. And I started getting business results. And then I think what we call sales, I call fulfillment, which is I get a client and I do something for them. The problem being is, and we've talked about this before personally, right? You should never lose sight of your business for someone else's business. Because if they have to make that tough choice between you and them, they are 100% going to choose them every time. Every time. And they should. And you should always choose you over their business as well. That's the beautiful freedom about this business. They have the ability and freedom to run it their way. We have the ability and freedom to run it our way. And it should be looked at as a strategic alliance, right? I'm coming to work with you, right? I bring my time, my energy, my reliability, my communication, my integrity. You bring the offer, the leads, the proven sales process, the support, right? And we collab and we make it work. Or not, right? And so thinking of that You Inc. is really about saying, why are we the only ones? Like, I don't get it. Facebook ads, email marketers, copywriters, right? Designers, web designers, logos, any other service, right, is treated as such. You have a portfolio, you have clients, you go out and sell your service. If you don't like a client, you ditch them, right? Like, that's the business. For some reason, and I think it has to do with online marketers targeting the make money online crowd that have no idea what this is and selling it as some unique thing. It's remote sales. It's been happening so long, right? Yeah. It's like sales done from home. That's it, right? And so they package it up like this crazy world, and people get confused. But it's a service. I'm providing my service to a business. Why should I not have the dignity and respect to be able to say yes and no to those things?
Isn't it crazy that, like, this being the service that's the most overlooked is the same service that is literally the most important in the business? Like, if you don't have salespeople, you don't have a business. I've seen they're literally, if you have sales, you can figure everything else out. There's no sales, there's nothing. So it's hilarious.
Yeah, and marketing is right beside us, right? Marketing and sales is tag team, and everybody in marketing is a service provider. Yep. Everybody in sales is an employee. How did that happen, right? And so I think that it's a lot of people coming in from 9 to 5. They're running away from something, which is fine, right? I was too. But then they start to bring the 9 to 5 here, right? It's like
Mhm.
You wanted freedom, and now you're trading your freedom for a base pay, and you're trading your hours, and you're trading this and you're trading that. And what you found is like you just work a 9 to 5 from home. That's not what I wanted, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to run a business and have the freedom to choose. And sometimes it's tough decisions. Like I've had to walk away from, 25, 35K a month opportunities because it didn't fit the business, the core values, the vision that a
Mhm.
business needs to have. And most people aren't willing to do that. They want to trade everything for safety, security, and that false sense of comfort.
100%. That's powerful, man. I think a lot of people could take a lot out of that. What about like lifestyle design? And definitely like after you're super successful, what about when your lifestyle has been like a 9 to 5, right? And now you get a clothing gig, you make like what kind of changes would you make to your lifestyle to basically, and I know for you, you have like seasons, right? You have like a 12 month or 24-month season when you're focused. Like, um, I guess what would a season of grinding to get to 40K months in closing look like um
Yeah.
for somebody to be successful, like lifestyle and the day-to-day?
Yeah. So first of all, there's a couple mistakes that I think people make, right? In that the biggest lie being told right now is like, how do you balance like life and work? Like, are you not living when you're working? Is that not part of your life? That's a big part of most people's life.
Yeah.
Like thinking of those two as disconnected, that gets people in a lot of trouble, right? Because it's like you take a third out of or more of your life, right? And you're like, oh, that's not my life, that's this, right? And it sets the mindset of like, I'm either living or I'm working, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, it was about deciding, like, I think a lot of people say they use the word realistic in the wrong way, right? They say like, oh,
Okay.
I'm just being realistic. What they mean is I'm afraid, I'm scared of shit, right? When people say that I'm just being realistic, it means I am afraid it didn't work out in the past and I don't want to set the bar high and get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I was never one of those people, right? I want to set the bar so fucking high, not because I think I'm going to always hit it, because I need that fuel. I need that inspiration, right? It's like, I don't look at my goals as like, if I don't hit them, I'm a horrible person. I look at it as like, does it get me up, fueled, ready to go in the morning where I don't have any time to waste? And so I think with lifestyle design, it's about like what I see is everybody comes in, you ask them their goal, and they say 10K a month. And it's like, well, why 10K? Well, someone told me I could make 10K in 21 days, 25 days, whatever it is, right? It's like, okay, good luck with that. But it means nothing. And the minute you hit a roadblock, you're going to forget about it, right? Because it's nothing. It's someone else's goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to really think, is it 8K? Is it 10K? Is it 12K? Is it 15K? Is it 25K? Is it 90K? Right? You have to think about what it is because no one's collecting the paper. It's not
Right.
the number that matters, right? It's what does that mean,
What's the
right?
number
Like
for?
some people would be so much happier if they said, you know what, Jay, I just want to make 6K a month. I want to spend time with my family and work 5 hours a day and just chill and relax. And I got a woodworking, garage, and I just want to have fun and enjoy. Like if that's what you want to do, all the power to you. Don't set the 10K goal. Don't set the 15K goal. Don't set the 40K goal because it's tough, right? There's a sacrifice there. It has to be worth it. The juice has to be worth the squeeze, right? And so what I would say is that if you look at it and you say, okay, 10K would allow me to save, would allow me to invest in real estate, would allow me to travel, whatever it is. Like, why is that important to me? Right? Like, what do I want? Why is that important to me? And am I 100% committed to that? If you can't answer those three things, then you're living by default. Right. And so you either have two options by default or design. And I've lived both, and design is much better, I can tell you. But you need to be able to commit, right? We've grown up in a society that like praises sacrifice and compromise. Sacrifice and compromise are most of the time absolute bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a lack of creativity and a lack of determination often, where people hit a roadblock and they're like, oh, I wanted to make 10, but 5K would be okay. Well, do you want 5 or 10? Right? Like I laugh when someone tells me like, I want to make 5 to 10K. Do you know how big of a gap that is? right? Like look at people making 5K and look at people making 10. You're talking about double your money, right? And so like, it's that idea of figure out exactly what you want first, without the realist, without the critic, without the, breaking it down or like, I don't know if it's selfish. You could just like get it out exactly what you want. Like if you knew you couldn't fail, genie in a bottle, magic wishes type situation, you have to write it all down exactly what you want. No compromise, right? Then you start building a plan. And the plan has to be what would have to happen. That's a beautiful start to any question, because a lot of times we're restricted because we might not just have the answer. We might be missing an ingredient, right? And so if it's like, how can I? You might not have the answer, right? So like, what would have to happen for me to achieve this, right? I ask most people what their goal is. They say 10K, and I say, okay, how many sales is that a month? I don't know. Okay. How much do you need to retire? I want $1 million. Okay. Well, how much is that? How much does that get you every year? Right? How much do you need to make to retire at 55 with 10 million? I never thought about it. Okay. Where's your, if you could go anywhere in the world right now, anywhere in the world, where's your dream vacation? Japan. Okay. How much would a trip to Japan cost? Never thought about it. It's a pipe dream. As long as you don't know the details, it's a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. The 1%, if that are lucky enough to just stumble upon those things, everybody else has to figure out the plan. So you dream it first in detail, right? Like I want, the 3-bedroom house. I want the double rain showers. You want the paved driveway. What do you want in the backyard? Turf, grass, like get it down to the nitty gritty details, and then go out and price it. You want to go to Japan for a year? Price it. Show your subconscious that that's actually what you want, because then your subconscious will start looking for you. We'll start looking for opportunities. We'll start working towards that. But most people are working against their subconscious, and their subconscious is working against them because it has no idea what they want, because they just go flip-flop every time something gets hard. They cut their goals in half. Right? Like every time someone gets hard, I either double my strategy, like improve my strategy, or improve my work ethic, right? Like it comes down to those 3 things, right? The skills, the mindset, and the strategy. But most people sacrifice the result.
For everybody watching this, I hope you're taking notes, and I hope you go back through this, because I think a lot of people watch videos like for entertainment, like this is cool, what's the next one? And like they just watched all they needed to know to actually get the results. So for anybody watching, I deeply recommend to go back through that, because that's the most important part. That's huge. What about lifestyle design after you hit your goals with closing? Like and obviously everybody has like a different model for what they want, right? But like for the digital nomad, the person who just wants total freedom, travel, I guess what kind of tips would you give? This is a super vague question, super open, but yeah, what would you tell somebody like that who's looking to travel or get out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can only base it on my experience. And again, each person is different. So what you want to do is find someone who's living a similar life to what you want, right? Because not everybody wants to travel like I travel. Some people do it differently. Some people backpack, whatever it is, right? And so I would say my advice is find someone who's doing what you want to do, right? Because they're going to have that experience. From my experience, like if someone wants to do what I'm doing, one thing that I've learned is it's really hard to travel often. Travel takes a lot out of you, right? Like when I first started traveling, I did 34 countries in two and a half years. And like, I was run down, I was tired all the time. And I felt like I was missing things. Like I seen a lot. It'd be like, I get to a place, I do all the touristy stuff, and then I'd get on a bus and go 11 hours to the next thing. And like I was doing a lot, but I didn't feel like it was absorbing. And so in the last like 2.5 years, I've decided to slow down, and I really like getting into place and going to the markets and figuring out how the locals live. And for me, like not having to worry about, does the Airbnb have good Wi-Fi, right? Is it going to be too loud? Is it going to be this, going to be that? Right. And so what I've found is like, for me, picking like 3 or 4 places that I want to spend, 3 to 4 months in a piece.
Mhm.
And then, taking off over Christmas. And if I want to travel a bunch of places, like when there's less commitments in work, then I can take off, or I can take 3 weeks off in the summer and do a bunch of, Europe cities. But that would be the biggest thing is if you are working, if you are, closing, the two things you want to pay attention to is one, not over traveling, right? And two, watching the time zones. So if you're selling in US hours, right, like you can do US, Europe is not bad, right? If you don't mind working in the evening, you're working like a 3 to 11, which is, for me, that's golden hours, right? Once you start going more east, it starts getting into later in the night. So when I was selling in Korea, like I said, it was night shift, right? And so obviously you want to look at, Wi-Fi, and you want to look at time zones. But I think the biggest thing is either go to a few places and see what you like, right? And then settle in and do 3 or 4 months and then switch it up or decide to stay there longer. Because that's usually, for most people, that's what their visa allows anyway, is that kind of 3 months. So I find like, 3 months in 4 places is enough variety that it makes me feel good. I never get bored, but I can get deeper in that layer of, I'm not rushed. I can go out on the weekend and check some stuff out, or sometimes I can just take a weekend and chill, relax by the pool or hit the sauna, where before it was like, I felt guilty. I felt like I had to, I'm only here for 2 weeks. I have to go out and see everything, and you're just exhausted.
It's so good. Guys, for anybody watching, if you've watched this all the way through, if you're doing it, what I want you to do is in the comments, like literally write down in the comments, like these things that we talked about. How much do you want to make? What does the lifestyle look like? How much does that cost? It can be super drawn out, it can be super short, but I just want to see you guys actually post that in the comments. So do that. If you do, me or JD will, like, I don't know, respond.
Yeah, I'll be in there. So, and again, any questions, any ideas, if you want to know, like I said, I've been to about 34 countries, not everywhere, but I can give some insights on, what are the best for, in my opinion, for certain things and different lifestyles. So I'll be checking the comments, this week, next week, and periodically. So if you have any questions, drop them in there. You can also connect with me on Facebook in our high ticket closer group. Yeah, I'm here.
Appreciate you. Good to have you on today, JD. I think a lot of people are really going to benefit from
Always
seeing
my
this.
pleasure, man. Appreciate you. Keep doing it.
You already know. All right, guys, have a good rest of your day. Stay tuned.